Happy Monday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and Matthew. Over the weekend, there was a lot to talk about in the way of college football, which we will get to in a moment. But Penn State fired James Franklin yesterday after 11 years in Happy Valley, and I think you and I share the same feeling about it. I'll let you lead us off.
Yeah, I'm as I've started my write up, it's set the program back, and it's a move that I think right now, like the optics around it, you understand kind of why they did it. Like this is a season that it feels like Penn State fans have been waiting for 11 years. And when they first got that win over Ohio State back in 2016,
Mhm.
this was where they thought they were building to. This was the season they thought they were building to. They brought everybody back. They made a big hire, defensive coordinator. And so you really thought this was the season. And so when you go into the season expecting a national championship and the expectations as sky high as they were for Penn State, you lose three football games, two of them to really bad teams, and you understand your displeasure and your want to move on from the coach. However, I think once you get outside of the feelings of right now, it feels like a move that might hurt the program in the long term.
Well, from my standpoint, if you look at this, right, let's take two players, Saquon Barkley and Micah Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those are James Franklin players.
Yep.
It's not that he couldn't get the players, it
No.
wasn't that the team played poorly. It's that he didn't beat Ohio State, Michigan, and, you know, a top the top 10, top 25 teams on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you're gonna fire him for that, I mean, the guy had, what was it, 100, he was 140, 164 and 42 over his 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah. He like his record. I think it was 145 and 42, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't, if the challenge is going to be, well, you haven't won multiple Big Ten titles, well, then half the coaches in the Big Ten are going to be gone.
Yeah. I like I think Penn State fans have created an expectation of the national championship or bust, which is fine. That's not an unrealistic expectation. But those expectations can't cloud the view in terms of a long-term judgment call. Like they made it on Sunday and they made it very quickly. Like it felt like it was they pulled the trigger way too fast, I think. And I think my best example is you go down to Tallahassee, Florida, and last
Hmm.
year, and
Right.
the how upsetting that season was based off where they were just a year ago. But Mike
Right.
Norvell had bought himself the leeway. You would think that a top four appearance from James Franklin and Penn State would have bought him some leeway to, albeit, they weren't going to accomplish the goals they wanted to, having three losses already. But you
Right.
think he buys himself some grace and an allowance to not have a great year.
Hmm. Yeah. It's you know, I think that when you hold people up to unrealistic standards, you're bound to be um, disappointed, and I
Hmm.
think um, that's something that you and I know from our experiences Southeastern Conference.
Hmm.
You know, I can tell you at Florida. I mean, you take a look at what's going on down there. I mean, we see what Billy Napier, was brought in. They gave Billy all the money, all the help that he possibly could, want or need. You look over at what
Hmm.
happened at LSU. You look over at what's going on in Alabama, and the thing is, if I'm, um, where do they go for the next coach? And if I'm the next coach, am I taking this job and is it going to benefit me to do that? Yeah, it's going to benefit me monetarily, but am I
Hmm.
to do a better job at it than James Franklin? And I'm not so certain that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and like I think another aspect that really hurt him as well is the high school recruiting.
Hmm.
Like the new coach isn't going to be able to come in and re-put together that class that James Franklin had assembled not only this upcoming year but the season after it too in
Hmm.
2027. He had done a really good job in both those classes. He had landed some high profile guys, and almost all of like the really high profile guys that he had landed have
Hmm.
decommitted since. So that's an uphill battle. And in terms of the coach, I think you're probably headed down. I would say two horse. Probably the third would be Manny Diaz, but the top two are probably Matt Rule and Kurt Cignetti. I think those are. I think Cignetti's the clear 1A, and Matt Rule is the pivot after Cignetti rejects every push that Penn State's willing to make to go get him.
Yeah, I would agree. I, but where does Matt Rule? I mean, why would Matt Rule take the job?
Um, I, Well, and I think that is a problem because like Matt Rule has ties to Penn State. I don't remember what the exact
No,
ties
I
are,
know,
but
I realize that.
yeah,
I'm just saying, I'm
yeah,
wondering.
yeah. No, I think where you're going to run into the biggest problem when you go out and look at these jobs, like Penn State, the brand, right,
Hmm.
is it's a good brand. It's not like the premier brand in college football
No.
necessarily. And they have to have like when you look, and these are questions that I don't know the answer to, but when you look under the hood of Penn State and the football program as a whole, are you going to see the financials that match expectations? Like you can't have national championship expectations and have an investment or have the school be more invested for an 8-5 program or a 9-4 program year in and year out. Like,
Hmm.
do expectations match buy-in from the institution?
The the athletic director and I mean, forever Penn State, because let's go back to the Paterno days. Paterno basically was the de facto AD at Penn
Yeah,
State when he was there. And I'm going to say stuff that which is not out of school. People who know Penn State and like Penn State know this. He worked hard to make certain that the basketball program didn't get anything, didn't get any publicity at all. There was one sport at Penn State, and that was football. Now, that wasn't to say that Penn State didn't have other sports that were good. They did. But they never got the exposure that football got, and that was Paterno. As we moved into the multiple, into the past Paterno, and moved on to, after they suffered and through the many years of the self-inflicted wounds of the post-Paterno time and the 11 years that James Franklin was there, James Franklin brought that program back. Now, they've always had money. That's not been an issue. They've always had buy-in from the students and from the alumni. Again, not an issue. Where the issues come is, do I want to how can I be better than James Franklin, who was consistently winning 9 and 10 games every year
hmm
and consistently being, a strong competitor for the title, even again, not winning as much as they would like him to, but at the same time, doing everything I could possibly do, recruiting probably better than I would say if you looked at the roster year in and year out, probably the only team in that conference that recruited better was Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
recruited better than Michigan.
Yeah,
Um,
off the field, he was going toe to toe
right,
with the biggest brands in the Big Ten. Like that was not an issue.
right. So I don't know exactly. Okay, you fire the guy. Who are you going to get? And you brought up a very important thing. James Franklin is a guy who knew when he was an assistant coach to Ralph Friedgen at Maryland. Ralph Friedgen had some pretty amazing years at Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to Ralph Friedgen and said, what was the key to your success? He would tell you James Franklin. That
Which
James Franklin knew every damn, high school coach in Maryland, in Southern Pennsylvania, in Delaware, in New Jersey. I mean, he knew them all,
mm-hmm.
and he would get them all. And, he would bring these guys in. So when James Franklin didn't get the head coaching job at Maryland when Friedgen, was ousted, and he went to Vanderbilt, and he built a nice little program over at Vandy, and then the Penn State job came open. Well, Penn State, they knew James Franklin could recruit that better in Pennsylvania than half the people that they were even thinking about, and he proved it. And he proved it
Mm-hmm.
throughout. Uh, so you touched on what I would consider probably the biggest thing to to care about, and that is that James Franklin's. You get rid of James Franklin, fine. Who are you going to get that's going to have the contacts James Franklin has?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it just feels
And
like such
James
a
Franklin, by the way, may end up in Maryland.
or I mean, I don't feel like it's that far outside of the footprint. Virginia Tech is an opening right now
Mm-hmm.
that I think he would probably fit very good at if they're willing to give him the resources he needs, which I think Virginia Tech probably would. Um, yeah, no, I like it seems like Matt Rule's probably. I think he's the most clear answer outside of whatever they do to try to get Signetti. But I'm not sure it's going to replace that. Like it's it just feels so fast, and it feels like I think college football in particular, and the ads and the fans and these institutions have gotten this idea of, and I'll be honest with you, like part of the reason I think James Franklin gets fired is because of what Kirk Cincinnati is doing at Indiana right now. Like I
Right.
think that has unreasonably altered expectations for, and this goes for any fan base. So I've seen it talked about. I've somehow made it over to Michigan State's side of Twitter occasionally, like
Mm-hmm.
once or twice this season, and they're like, man, if Indiana has it, like why can't we have it? Because Indiana struck gold. That's why everybody can't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what Indiana did when they found Kurt Signetti is not and probably will not be replicated in college football coaching and the way to turn around a program the way he has.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not going to be done again. It's an unreasonable expectation, but it's the one that everybody has fresh on their mind. And
Mm-hmm.
I think another one that Penn State people are probably going to use is the when Georgia fired Mark Richt.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, all right, and this seems to be the way everybody remembers. They're like, well, 9-3 wasn't good enough. Like 10-2 wasn't good enough. Mark Richt didn't have an expanded playoff. If he did, there's an argument that he probably has a
Mm-hmm.
national title if there's a 14 playoff during Mark Richt's tenure at Georgia. Like
Right.
it's a legitimate argument. James Franklin had it the whole time. Um, and when they came to the agreement that he was going to resign, because that's what it, he was fired, but he wasn't technically fired. They came to that mutual
Right.
resignation. Um, the seasons weren't 9-3 seasons. Like Georgia had
Mm-hmm.
really kind of fallen into a much more middling tier
Right.
for a couple of years before they decided to make the move. And they made the move when they knew the guy that they wanted to hire, that they had planned as
Hmm.
kind of like the succession, was going to get hired at South Carolina and Kirby Smart.
Right.
None of those factors apply here, and there's no distinctive factor about the Penn State job that you can point to and just go like, this is a top 5 job in the country right now, or this is a top
Hmm.
10 job in the country right now, because I'm not sure that it is.
I think I would say it's a top 10 job because of the the pedigree of what you've got and the talent base you have. Um, so it's a perception deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always somebody who thinks I can do it better. Okay. And whatever James Franklin didn't do, I'll be able to make it better. Um, I'm not so certain that that's true. And I agree with you that I don't think it's true. But I think that they're likely going to find somebody um, who's right now an assistant coach in the NFL
We're,
to be the coach at Penn State. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think the names that 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 are out there. I don't think are. I don't think. I think they're smart enough to realize if I take that job and I don't succeed at it the first year, it's gonna. The heat is on from the moment I take the job.
yeah, and I was reading uh like hot board from from a Penn State site. Let's see here,
Hmm.
where was it? Yeah, it's on SB Nation, their Penn State site. I'm reading like some of these candidates. I think that, yeah, number 3 on here is Kenny Dillingham. Under no circumstances is Kenny Dillingham leaving Arizona State to go to Penn State.
No, makes no
That's
sense.
not happening. It's not where he's at. And like Lane Kiffin is on here. Why would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss right now for Penn
Hmm.
State? Like it feels like maybe a more likely guy that would jump around. But if he's going to jump, he'd probably jump to Florida.
Yeah, that would make some sense. And I've heard rumbling today. A lot of boosters in Maryland want him,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got the money to pay him. Um,
Yeah. Or-
and I think that he would like the opportunity to take that job, stay in the Big Ten, and basically prove Penn State wrong.
Yeah, but I do have a question, because Maryland's not exactly having a bad year. Is what record does
They've lost their last 3 games.
Oh, they have. Okay, well, never
Yeah,
mind. All right.
and
I
they're
was about
playing
they had been
UCLA.
undefeated.
Yeah,
That they've lost them close, I think is what it is.
Loxley is the coach
Yeah.
here. They're going out to play UCLA.
Yes.
Uh, they haven't played more than 2 quarters of football that have been overwhelming in the past. I mean, they look good against bad teams, I guess is the best way of putting it. And
Yeah, they did.
so the rest of their schedule is not a good schedule. And you know, if there's James Franklin on the market, I don't care if Loxley wins 7 games or 8 games.
Hmm.
They'll figure out a way to get rid of him
Yeah.
because they wanted James Franklin after they had buyer's remorse. They went when they didn't hire him, and then he went and had a good season at a couple good seasons at Vandy and then to Penn State. All the alumni were going and screaming, why didn't we hire the guy?
Hmm.
And
And
so that
how
was
did that how did that Maryland coaching search initially, like who ended up getting the job
uh God, what was that guy's name?
when it was
Um, oh man, after Friedgen. Um, Unfortunately, there was a player who died on it. Randy Etzel.
Randy Etzel?
Yeah,
Because I know that was well before DJ Durkin as well.
Yeah.
who actually also had a similar thing.
Yeah. I mean, they had when they came into the Big Ten, they just they were clueless as to. I mean, they hired coaches they thought were Big Ten type coaches. They
Hmm.
didn't really do it properly. They didn't have the proper athletic director in place. They fumbled their way, no pun intended, all the way through it, and basically made, if there was a wrong hire to make, they figured out a way to make it, and they have. I mean, again, there's plenty of money there.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of Kevin Plank, the guy who is Under Armour,
Yeah.
one of their major benefactors.
Yep.
And so I think that they'll make a run at him if that's what he wants. Now, again, remember, he's got, what is it, 46 million dollars in a buyout.
Yeah.
So
49 is the number that
is
I
it
kept saw
Yeah,
kept
okay.
seeing yesterday. Ooh.
So 49. It's not
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher money, but it's a pretty good number.
It's
Um,
livable.
yeah, he might get he could scrape by on that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to take a job if
No.
he doesn't want to. But there will be people who will want him, and like you said, Virginia Tech might be a good landing spot for him. I do
Hmm.
kind of believe that if he wanted a job, if he really wanted to jump right back into it, I think that Maryland might be a place where he could land, because again, all those kids that would be going to Penn State, he could bring to Maryland,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that would be a very interesting situation with regard to how he could turn that program around. So
Well,
we'll.
that's what I was going to pose the question is what if Maryland fires Mike Loxley, hires Franklin,
Mhm.
and what if he's out recruiting the guy that you hire? What if you look up in 2 years and Maryland's in a better spot than Penn State is because Maryland hired the guy that you fired?
Yep.
So it's
Well, that's the I right now think that that particular scenario could be very tempting to James Franklin.
hmm
Um, if you feel as if you've been, you know, if you've been disrespected, if you've been underappreciated, if you feel like I didn't deserve to lose that job, but I lost it anyway, then I think that, I mean, one thing you can never say about James Franklin is his players quit on him.
Yeah. Well, and I think that may be a little bit more of what kind of went into it because these last two games against
Hmm.
UCLA and Northwestern, that's kind of the feeling that you got from it. And I think against Northwestern, it may be a little unfair just
Hmm.
because Drew Aller suffered the season-ending injury, but he hadn't taken a step forward. Like this team didn't get better in the offseason when they brought everybody back and made all those transfer portal additions. And are you mixing up the team not getting better for the team not being bought in? Is that something that could have happened here?
Right,
Because there is something to be said for if the message is stale, then it's time to move on.
right,
But if only once, like if the head coach doesn't believe his message is stale, then that can still lead to some hurt feelings and harbor some anger in taking a Maryland job and wanting to beat Penn State.
right. I think that you know, not being in the in the locker room, um, but looking at it from 120 miles away from State College, um, and knowing the people up there, they the expectation of what Penn State should be doing on a yearly basis versus, I mean, if you recall, it was Miami, it was Florida State, it was Notre Dame, it was Penn State, Alabama. back in the day, back in the high,
Mm-hmm.
70s and 80s, those were the teams that were constantly, they were independents, and they were all, they, in many cases, they played each other.
Yeah.
And that was, there was national championships all the way, on the line almost every year for those teams. And then, things changed whenever, Penn State jumped into the Big Ten, and life as they know it, Penn State Nittany Lion fans changed,
Yeah.
and and it didn't change necessarily for the good. And then
Yeah.
they had to build the program back from the situations where, you know, Paterno's fired, Bill O'Brien comes in, and Franklin replaces Billy O'Brien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I don't know. I think Penn State really suffered from a. I think they reacted in emotion on something they definitely shouldn't react in emotion on. And it's a decision that, albeit while everybody's celebrating because this guy can never win the big
Mm-hmm.
game, you may be looking and going, man, I really wish we could win the ones we were supposed to win a little more often.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen teams. We are talking about this 3-game losing streak. Um, you expend all your energy in that Oregon game, right? And you play
Yeah.
them as hard as you possibly can, and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to go out to the coast and play UCLA,
Yep.
and you're just, you still have a little bit of a hangover of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You get suddenly UCLA, you know, gets up on you, and you're looking up at the scoreboard and going, "Hell, what the hell are we doing here? We're losing to UCLA." That happens. You get back home. You know, you start to push to say, "Okay, wait a minute. We got to think." There's a panic situation. Then you go and you lose to Northwestern, as you said. Not necessarily fair to judge that one because of the injuries. And now you're in the whole 03,
Mm-hmm.
and as a player and as a team, you're like, you're looking up and you wait a minute. We went from 3-0 to 0-3, and I can't figure out what just happened.
Yeah.
And that's happened. I've seen on many occasions to good teams. I mean, good
Mm-hmm.
teams, good coached, well coached teams. It's just, you get caught up in a whirlwind, and all of a sudden, you know, Ed Orgeron had that situation at LSU
Yeah.
where, he lost a lot of really close games that he knows I mean, by all accounts, they should have beat the living daylights out of those teams, but he didn't, and they didn't, and Orgeron lost a job 1 year, or I'm sorry, 2 years after winning a national championship.
Yeah. And I think here would be my biggest question to people, like, not only Penn State, but this kind of is just like an overarching. Why would Mike Norvell at Florida State? Why does he still have a job and James Franklin doesn't? Mike Norvell was 2-10 last year.
Yep.
They have a similar amount of buy-in. You have extremely similar expectations from the fan base. Why does Mike Norvell have a job after a 2-10 season and being 3-3 in the ACC? And James Franklin, who was in the Final Four last year and
Mm-hmm.
is also 3-3 with some injuries and honestly just some poor scheduling dynamics. Why is James Franklin unemployed and Mike Norvell isn't?
I don't know. I think, and he's, he lost this weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. To Pitt,
And
like, Pitt's on their backup quarterback. Eli Holstein came into the season with all these expectations. It
mhm.
didn't work out. They plugged the backup in. The backup played well, but I think for as much as the backup playing well, it also had to do with the overall talent that Florida State has on defense as a team.
Well, and then if you look out and say, we look at the top 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an FSU fan, and you look in there and you see USF is right, is ranked,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not. Now, obviously, USF doesn't play the quality of schedule that FSU plays. But I assure you, that doesn't even factor into it when you're an alumni and you're looking out there and you're going, what the hell are we doing? We spend all this money on this guy who who the athletic director tells us is the man we need, and
Mhm.
he has not produced for us. And what exactly are we getting out of it? And we get hell, we don't have to go up to Billy Napier's situation as well.
Mhm.
Don't have to leave the state for that. So there's Miami at number 2 is looking a whole lot better and better at this point in time. Indiana moving up to number 3, they deserve that.
Yeah.
Texas A&M did what they had to do, won that game. Ole Miss. And
Mhm.
if you look at it, man, the Southeastern Conference is just they jumped in and took over a big chunk of the top 10 of the AP this week.
Yeah, they did. And I think Texas A&M that went against Florida, like everybody wrote Florida off, and they upset Texas, and well, now that's Texas is
Mm-hmm.
just a bad football team, and then Texas goes and beats Oklahoma. Like I feel like I've been saying this over and over again, and I felt like a crazy person when they went on that stretch and they lost like 3 or 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 in a row. Florida's a really good football team. Like
Mm-hmm.
talent wise, they're still a very good football team. And Billy Napier has pressed a couple more correct buttons on offense, and they beat Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and they played a really good football game against Texas A&M. Like this is look at those skill position guys, and you look at the receivers in Vernell Brown and
Yeah.
Dallas Wilson and Aiden Mizell, and then you go to the backfield where Jaden Ball has been fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
and they still have a very good line on the offensive line. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at play calling, you're looking at the quarterback. And if when DJ Lagway plays well and the plays are
Mm-hmm.
there's more creativity in your play calling, then you get upsets against Texas and you're
Yeah.
doing the little things right. And so you see the talent and the ability to hang with what I do believe is worthy and deserving of the number 4 ranking in the country, Texas A&M. Like
Yeah.
they did what they were supposed to do, and Texas A&M, on the other hand, did what they're supposed to do against a really good football team at
Mm-hmm.
home, and that's win the game and win the game convincingly.
Yeah. And it's not easy to win at Kyle Field.
No, it's not.
And the other part of the equation is, if you look at it, and to your point exactly, there's probably going to be, and we didn't even talk about the defense. There's
Hmm.
probably going to be, you know, anywhere from 9 to 10 players on that Florida team that's going to be playing on Sundays next year.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of people with that Florida Gator logo kind of lurking down there on the bottom of their schedule. And
Mm-hmm.
the further you get to it, the more likely it is that their record's going to look worse and worse. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like in your head, you're thinking that game's getting easier and easier. It's not. Like that's what I think people don't understand. Like they talk about the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's the best conference. There's not a team in the Big Ten that, like, if they go up against Ohio State, like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, well, you're like, they're a really good sleeper team. They might beat them. Like it doesn't exist in the Big Ten. That's middle level where your floor is versus where your ceiling is in the conference is a lot. I think the Big Ten has a higher ceiling, and I think they have a much lower floor than the SEC. The SEC is a much more, like, their talent level is a lot closer together throughout the conference. So you're going to get games where Florida can go out and beat you as a 4 or 5 win football team later in the
Mm-hmm.
season.
Well, I mean, the other part of the equation there is you also have teams like Vanderbilt, and you don't really have a team in the Southeastern Conference that you can just mark off your schedule and say, oh, well, don't worry about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I think you can do that with the bottom part of the Big Ten,
Yeah.
and I think that the addition of Oregon, and we'll see about the USC thing, but certainly the addition of Oregon helped them, but I don't think Washington helped them. I don't think, you certainly. I mean, it's good to see UCLA playing well again, but
Hmm.
I don't think that they strike fear in anybody's heart.
No,
Um, Oregon's there, and so away you go. But if you just look at the top 10, and 5 teams in the top 10 are from the Southeastern Conference, and then you go 16, 17, you know, 16 and 17 are also Southeastern Conference, 14 Southeastern Conference. It's hard to argue that the Big Ten is as good as the Southeastern Conference when almost half of the top 25 of the Southeast are Southeastern Conference team.
yeah, and I think it's something that people tend to get lost in. Like they now when we move to the 12-team playoff, now more than ever, in an NIL model, it changed the way the argument was being had between the SEC and the Big Ten. And like I think now people need to realize like I think the Big Ten's top end talent is better and the SEC's depth is better. But
Right.
people can't like there has to be a definitive conference, and there's not going to be a definitive better conference. The SEC was that way for so long because Nick Saban was the head coach at Alabama. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason. The talent level throughout the SEC didn't change as much. Just that one common force at the top. And I feel like that common force at the top also raised the level of everybody else underneath them as well. And
I
that
don't think
doesn't
there's any
exist in the
question about it. I
SEC
think you're
anymore.
right. You're right on point.
So
Well, let's jump over to the National Football League just for a couple of things coming up. We got a couple games tonight. We got Buffalo taking on the Falcons in
yes.
Atlanta, Monday Night Football, and a repeat of last year's miracle ending when Washington beat Chicago in the final play of the game on that Hail Mary that just happened to land right in Terry McCollum's lap after everybody in the world jumped up to catch it. Fantastic finish. Should be an interesting couple of games. The first game, Buffalo Atlanta. That game is 7:15. It's an ESPN game.
Hmm.
ABC has your Chicago and Washington game. So two good games to watch tonight. Uh, Yesterday, some ugly football, but some interesting football. Carolina beats Dallas. Suddenly, Carolina's playing pretty decent football. You got Indianapolis. How about them? I mean, that's a surprise.
Yeah.
Jacksonville played well, but Seattle got them. Miami continues to look terrible.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh just keeps playing well enough to stay atop a not so good um, AFC North. And Tampa Bay and the 49ers had a pretty good game yesterday.
Yeah, they did. I one that you didn't hit on that I'm kind of curious about. Green
But
Bay and Cincinnati.
oh yeah, okay,
Just because it feels like after those first like two or 3 weeks for Green Bay, really since that Cleveland game, things have not been as good. Um it's and I it's tough to point to one aspect or another, but you lose that game to Cleveland, you tie with Dallas, and then you've won since then, but you haven't really looked good. And it's I think it's an interesting dynamic. And also on the other end for Cincinnati, that was another abysmal first half of offense for Cincinnati. But in the second half, Joe Flacco showed you something. And so you wonder, can he pull another magical, plus 40 over 40 season for Cincinnati and maybe get you back into a spot where you're competitive when Joe Burrow returns for those last 2 to 3 games.
I think in just watching, I thought frankly I was impressed with Joe. He
Mm-hmm.
I mean, given the fact that he literally got there on Wednesday,
Yeah.
there's no way he figured out the playbook. The offensive line is not that great. And here he comes in and does a very reputable job of keeping them in the game. So I think, I think it's interesting, and you have a situation coming up on, was it Pittsburgh and Cleveland play each other? Or not? Is it Pittsburgh and who plays each on Thursday night this week?
Let's see.
Now, Pittsburgh played Cleveland yesterday. All right.
Yes, they did.
So
Yeah.
you had two 40-year-old quarterbacks in that game. And, Baltimore who loses again. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cleveland. So Cleveland had Dylan Gabriel in. So it's just
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers yesterday.
Oh, I'm thinking of Cincinnati. Cincinnati's where he's at now.
So Cincinnati and Pittsburgh do play this Thursday.
Right. So so tonight, Thursday night, you'll have two 40-year-old quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting. That's for darn sure to see how that works out. But right now, Baltimore has a week off, and it's possible that Lamar Jackson could be back. Now, if it were me and I were coaching or general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not sure I would try to rush to get Lamar Jackson back.
No, you don't. Especially not where the season is. If you've won or looked competitive, I think looking competitive would be the reason you would rush them back. Because even if you don't win those games, if they're like close, hard-fought games, and the rest of your roster is looking really good, but it's obvious you're just missing the quarterback position, then maybe you rush Lamar Jackson back. But that's not the way these games have looked. These games have been sloppy for Baltimore. They are very obviously a team with more holes than just quarterback at this moment in time. And they're going to get some of those back with injury later in this season as well. But if you don't feel like you can field a complete team, then don't push your quarterback and go make something that is an already not great situation as it is potentially worse.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that probably the major problem there is you're going to have – this is a guy who you hope to have for at least 3 or 4 more years of highly productive play.
Mm-hmm.
Giving him a couple good games more off is not going to make any difference.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, and get even hot a little bit and make it to the playoffs, I'm not so certain that that's the wisest way to go. I think it's, if he's ready to play, that's different. If he's not ready to play, then give him another week off.
I don't want them to come back 2 weeks from now, and I don't want to see Lamar Jackson listed as probable on the injury report. Like, if it's a probable, then he needs to be doubtful,
right?
Not playing. You want to have him at full health, and like that's there's a distinct difference between can play and healthy. Very distinct difference.
I think you had a good observation about the Packers, because they look like world beaters the first week of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just barely, they're winning,
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. But they're not winning with the confidence that you think, Detroit is beginning to play better than they played before. And they're starting to look like the Lions.
Yeah.
Green Bay is playing well enough to win, but they're also playing competition that they should beat more than, by more points than what's going on. So,
yeah,
we'll see. But I think that's going to be an interesting thing, as we keep looking out and going on. Real quick for tonight, we got the doubleheader games there. Um, your thoughts on? I think for Buffalo, one team we didn't hit on, New England's looking a whole lot better. Mike
Mm-hmm.
Grable's doing really well up there. I don't know that they're ready to challenge Buffalo yet, but they're certainly looking better. I don't think. I mean, I think this is a critical game. It's early in the season, and I don't want to, be panicky or anything like that. I think this is a critical game for both Buffalo and Atlanta.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. I I will say going back, New England did beat Buffalo in Buffalo, which is good. But I think what you're talking about is in terms of a division race, and I would agree. New England doesn't have the type of team to really be able to compete with Buffalo throughout the
Not
season
yet,
in that
no.
divisional race. Yeah,
Hmm.
not yet, which I think is true. And for the Falcons, I think this one's big just because when you're looking at that divisional race and the way that the Buccaneers have played, is
Hmm.
you're losing your margin for error because that Tampa Bay team is just getting better. And for I know Igbuka went out and they didn't really miss a step on offense when he went out. And
Hmm.
Igbuka and Bucky Irving and Mike Evans, these are guys that are going to come back and they're going to play healthy. Tristan Wirfs is back now. That offensive line's going to get a little better. Like,
Hmm.
for as much as Tampa Bay is going to become a better football team, not only through their play, like you generally, good teams, especially a team like Tampa Bay, is going to continue to become a more cohesive unit throughout the
Hmm.
season, and
Right.
you would anticipate them continuing to improve. And
Hmm.
then you throw in the fact that they're going to get guys back from injury, and you're looking up at like a really big hill to climb in
Hmm.
terms of Atlanta just because of some of the games they dropped earlier in the season. That one to Tampa Bay where you didn't make the winning plays late. So in terms of a division race, they're already looking up at at Tampa Bay as they're running up the mountain, and they got to make up room because now you're talking about if Tampa Bay continues to play this way, then you're in a wild card race, and a wild card race isn't just your division, which
Hmm.
many people thought would be the easier path to the playoffs and just winning the division versus trying to make it into the wild card. So they need this one so they don't lose pace with the people they're chasing in the NFC.
Well, if they lose this, I mean they're right there with Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And I mean at that point you're now looking at a team where you have the same record as them, and they beat you by 30.
Hmm.
So it would be optics wise, it would be if you don't at least play a competitive football game, and it's important to win this game, and it's a very winnable game for Atlanta because Buffalo's defense has shown it has issues this year. But even still, it's a game that you have to be competitive in and really realistically, honestly win in order to feel really good about it.
Well, you're getting a Buffalo team at home,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're going to beat Buffalo, the opportunity to have them at your place, your your odds of winning against the Buffalo team, as good as they
Mm-hmm.
are better if they're playing at your house than they are if you're playing up there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a. I think this is a big game for Washington as well. The game
Yeah.
is Chicago tonight. I don't know that Chicago hasn't played that well,
No, they haven't.
and uh, Jaden Daniels looked good last week, but I think he's going to be better this week because he's feeling better.
Yeah.
The weather's not going to be good. It's going to be a little wet, and it's probably going to be a little windy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the key is to pay attention to what's going on
Yeah.
because it may very well be that we need a little extra time on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get yourself hurt. Just we'll see a lot of running tonight, I think, from that standpoint. But
Mm-hmm.
it'll be an interesting game. Two interesting games tonight,
Yeah.
and Tomorrow, Matt, we'll sit and have a chance to chat about baseball. Last night, of course, the Mariners played really well.
Mm-hmm.
And today we will see the Mariners and Toronto play, and we get to see the Dodgers tonight
Yeah.
against Milwaukee. And we've
Yep.
had some really good, solid baseball. Some good pitching, some serious defense,
Yeah.
some really good postseason baseball. So
Yeah. I
we'll
know
be
people don't love games in 3-1, but it can be a good baseball game if you really enjoy baseball.
I'm
So
sorry.
I said I know that people tend to not enjoy when baseball games end in scores like 3-1, but it is good baseball. Like that's really good pitching from that entire Seattle staff last night.
Well, there's that, and there's for all that time, right? You figured they, they're starting. Seattle was starting what in essence was an opener.
Yeah,
They
he
didn't.
was
They
their
had,
number
they had
one.
no idea how long that guy was going to go. It was only 3 days that he had rest.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they absolutely
And
did.
and I think in hindsight, to me, I think they pulled Gosman a little too quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's always something that's like tough to judge because
mhm,
in the playoffs the hook is always going to be faster.
sure,
But how fast is
absolutely.
too fast?
Hmm.
Because you obviously think back to that Tampa Bay in the 2020 World Series and that Blake Snell decision
Right,
as like the poster child of you pulled him too quick.
right.
So
Well, he's pitching tonight, so
yeah,
we'll
he
see
is.
what goes on. But anyway, thanks a lot. We enjoyed the conversation. By the time we start the show tomorrow, James Franklin might have a job. We don't know. We don't know. But
Yeah,
one thing we do know: Penn State won't have a new coach.
that is
So
true. They've got
we
their
will.
interim.
That what I'm sorry.
I said they've got their interim,
Yeah,
but
they're okay
other
for
than that,
okay for the time being, but
yep,
not for much longer.
yep.
So anyway, guys, have a great day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Whoops.